Donald Trump is the villain in Wonder Woman 1984.
Mr. Reagan.
This story annoys me to no end. So Wonder Woman 1984 is coming out soon. It's not coming out in theaters. They're actually just putting it, they're like streaming it over various services. I don't remember exactly where they're streaming it, but it's going up online. Will I watch it? Yeah, I probably will, just because Donald Trump is the villain, right? So Patty Jenkins is the director of Wonder Woman. They wanted to get a woman to direct it because, you know, feminism. And this is what she said: "I don't want to get political. It's not about getting political." Actually, a huge influence of this movie was also Bernie Madoff. What I was looking at was the young Madoff story. She said, fascinates me, because I'm like, how do you end up being Bernie Madoff? And when you really start tracking that story, it's like it all started out in a way that made sense, and he was paying it off and then doing this and then paying it off again, and then it's just like you become an evil dude when you don't even realize that it's happening. And she continues, so yes, Trump is definitely one of the people that we looked at, but it's any of those mavericks of business success that was big in the 1980s and went on to be major players in our world in potentially questionable other ways. So she's essentially equating Donald Trump and Bernie Madoff. Essentially, just anyone who got rich in the 80s, I guess, was a horrible, evil person, and Donald Trump. I don't understand how Bernie Madoff affected the world in any potentially questionable ways. Bernie Madoff didn't affect the world at all, except for his Ponzi scheme scam. Trump never had a Ponzi scheme. So the only evil thing that he could possibly be condemned for is being a bad president, which, you know, the Democrats are always complaining about. But he was obviously an amazing president. He is an amazing president, and I hope that he will be an amazing president for another 4 years. Something that's a bit ironic about this is that Hunter Biden actually is tied to another Ponzi scheme guy, Alan Stanford. If you don't know that story, look up Alan Stanford Ponzi scheme online. You can read about it. Hunter Biden is connected to him vaguely. That's all in Peter Schweitzer's book. You can check that out. But it's funny to me that the Bidens are involved with these kind of scummy people, but a major Hollywood film pitches Donald Trump as this massive kind of villain. But that's the way the left thinks. You know, Donald Trump is an evil villain out for like world domination or some other kind of, I don't know what they think. They're crazy. But to me, the funniest thing about all this, the most absurd thing, is that Trump is the villain in this Wonder Woman movie, and the Wonder Woman movie is called 1984. Now, that can't possibly be a coincidence, right? It can't be a coincidence that, you know, that the movie's called 1984, and we're living in 2020, essentially in a world very similar to the novel 1984, right? For those of you who don't know what 1984 is, and I'm sure 90% of you do, but there will be some who don't, it's a novel by George Orwell. This is published in 1949, and now George Orwell was a Marxist. He was a communist. He believed in communism and socialism, but he recognized the authoritarian nature of the USSR and other communist countries. He realized what socialism can lead to, and what, as we've seen since he's written that novel, what it seems to inevitably lead to, which is authoritarian dictatorships. And 1984 is kind of, they call it a dystopian novel, right? Dystopian meaning the opposite of utopian, like a horrific future. And the concept of 1984 is that everything is the sort of ultimate authoritarian dictatorship. Everything you do is, you know, perfectly controlled by the state. And not even what you do, what you think, right? They have something called wrong think. I believe it's called wrong think in the novel. And how you speak is dictated, right? They have something called new speak in the novel. And new speak is kind of language that they use to essentially to like mess with people's minds and to control people. They also have a lot of things that don't make any sense, right? They have well, it doesn't make any sense to us, but it's starting to become implemented today, right? They have the Ministry of Truth, right? And the Ministry of Truth is where the protagonist of the novel 1984 works. And what he has to do in his job is to take parts of history books, or I guess Wikipedia, and modify them to promote whatever it is that the state wants promoted. So if they want to promote homosexuality, then he'll go back, for instance, and he'll make like lots of great leaders he'll now put in the Wikipedia article was a homosexual, right? And he'll like rewrite that section, the personal life section of their autobiography or their biography to say, talk about their boyfriends and husbands and all these kinds of things. So, and that'll sort of promote the idea of homosexuality if that's what they wanted to promote, for instance. And we see that happening, right? There was something called, what was it called? The 1619 Project, right? That the New York Times printed, right? The 1619 Project is ahistorical, right? It's historical revisionism. It's what they call pseudo-history, right? It's just made up history, but it's written as if it is factual, right? And I did a whole video about this, about how there's all these, what they call Afrocentric history, and it's totally historical revisionism. It's total pseudo-history. It's all lies, essentially. They're rewriting history in a way to promote a certain idea, but they're lying. They're just lying. They're just making up things that didn't happen, or they're changing certain things about history in order to promote ideas that they prefer, right? So this is what happens in 1984. And we're finding that that happens today, right? This idea, like, I think they have, in 1984, the book, they have certain things like love is hate and war is peace and all this kind of stuff. And essentially, like, the words that you think you know actually mean the opposite of what you think they are, right? And we also saw this year, right? When they said, believe all women. And then somebody accused Joe Biden of sexual assault, and then they said, whoa, 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 whoa. When we said believe all women, we didn't actually mean believe all women, right? And you saw this as a massive pattern, right? This happened again and again and again over the past year and in 2019 as well. In fact, the entirety of the Donald Trump administration, we've seen the left say things that went at a time when they thought it would hurt Donald Trump, and then when it became something they realized that could hurt them, they said, no, we didn't mean that at all, right? When they say defund the police, they say, oh, no. When we say defund the police, we don't mean defund the police. Like, they're constantly saying we didn't, we're marching with this particular chant or something, right? Or they're stating this like very affirmative position, and then they go back like a month later and they go, that's not what you think it means. That doesn't mean what you think that it means. That means something completely different. That we meant something completely different by that. At one point, they actually changed a word in the dictionary. Mazie Hirono, in the congressional hearing where they're talking to Amy Coney Barrett. Amy Coney Barrett had said something like sexual preference, I think, when it came to homosexuality and things like that. And Mazie Hirono called her out and said, sexual preference is homophobic, right? I mean, forget that, like, every Democrat, politician for like the last 20 years has said sexual preference consistently with regards to, homosexuality versus heterosexuality. But Mazie Hirono comes out with this accusation, this slur, that somehow Amy Coney Barrett was like homophobic and was saying that, saying sexual preference as some kind of dig at homosexuals. Obviously that was absurd, but as no quicker than she had said it, and the words came out of Mazie Hirono's mouth, that the accusation flew from her, vile, nasty old lady face, then did the dictionary. I don't remember what dictionary it was, maybe Webster's. I shouldn't say Webster's. I don't know which dictionary it was. A dictionary somewhere, might have been Oxford English Dictionary, might have been Webster, not sure which one. They went ahead and they changed the definition of preference, right? Preference. I think it was preference. It might have been sexual preference in particular, but I think it was the word preference. They changed this word, they changed the definition in the dictionary to conform to what Mazie Hirono had said. And this is not a situation in which the government, as far as I'm aware, forced the dictionary to make the change. The people at the dictionary volunteered to do this, voluntarily changed the definition to conform to what Mazie Hirono said in order to support that Democrat political position. It is astonishing, people. We do live, in fact, in 1984. It's mental. And actually, the reason I made this video is because I have a friend who also makes videos, and his channel is called No BS, right? No BS. Great guy. And he made this video about how Wonder Woman is no longer going out into theaters, but in fact is being streamed, and he thought that was kind of funny. But I didn't even know about this movie coming out or anything, or that it was called 1984. So I was very curious about this, right? Because I like Hollywood stuff, whatever. Anyway, and in that video, he was saying that he thought it was interesting that we kind of live in 1984 now, and they're making a movie called 1984. And he said that he doubts that they're going to talk about any of the 1984 stuff that's going on right now. But I actually beg to differ. I have a slightly different perspective on this. And that's because, well, I mean, he does the same thing. But, I'm looking at the way leftists perceive the world all the time. I'm always trying to figure out why they think what they think. Because it seems so absurd to somebody on the right what the left thinks. But you have to kind of get into their mind and think about what their motivations are, what their intentions are, what their perceptions are. And at least with people in Hollywood, as far as I know, most of the extreme leftists that I've spoken with really genuinely believe that Donald Trump is a fascist, right? They believe that Donald Trump is an authoritarian dictator of the type that you will find in the book 1984. Now, in the book 1984, the dictator is called Big Brother, right? Big Brother is always watching. They got video cameras everywhere watching everybody. And so the left has kind of portrayed Donald Trump as a Big Brother type authoritarian dictator. Now, what policies has Donald Trump enacted that are 1984-esque or what they would call Orwellian? Nothing. I haven't heard of anything that he has implemented that is Orwellian. I mean, I could list a couple of accusations that are absurd, but the truth is Trump hasn't done anything that's Orwellian in any way whatsoever. He hasn't enacted any kind of laws that are anything like the laws in 1984. But you know who has implemented policies that are very similar to those in 1984? Leftist governors and mayors who have locked us all down because of COVID, right? Oh, it's for our safety. They're trying to keep us safe. Very similar to the kind of thinking of, Orwell's books. And anyway, but it's just amazing to me that Hollywood and leftists generally look at Donald Trump and they think fascist dictator, authoritarian dictator. At the same time, they're doing all these authoritarian things. They're implementing all these authoritarian rules and laws in society, and they're pointing at Donald Trump and saying he's an authoritarian. It's bizarre. I mean, it's just so delusional, right? So what we always say about the left, that they're always projecting, right? So do I think that Wonder Woman 1984 will talk about any of the Orwellian things that have happened in 2020? No, not the real ones. What I think it'll do is it'll introduce a villain that references Trump a lot and tries to say this is just like Donald Trump. But they'll apply to him authoritarian attributes that he doesn't actually have. Because a movie like this is intended to manipulate the American viewer. It's intended to manipulate viewers throughout the world. It's to prey upon their fears and their misperceptions about Donald Trump and try to villainize him even more than they've already done. Now, key point in this entire video, and I should have mentioned this earlier, this movie was supposed to come out before the election. They had to delay the filming of the movie because of COVID. But so the movie's coming out late, and they've really got to get it out soon, because if they don't get it out before January, there is a chance that Trump will no longer be in the White House, and the whole point of trying to manipulate the public will be lost. It will no longer be relevant. I'm hoping that Trump's still in office at that time, so maybe it will be relevant, but they're in a bit of a panic now to try to get this movie out as fast as they can. But it was supposed to come out before the election because they were trying to use it to demonize Trump and turn people against him. That was the whole point of this film. But thankfully that failed, and I'm hoping that the election fraud scheme also fails. All right, well, that's it for me, and I will see you guys next time.
The destiny of man is not measured by material computations. When great forces are on the move in the world, we learn we're spirits, not animals. There's something going on in time and space and beyond time and space, which, whether we like it or not, spells duty.